Am I still hella white?
Nah, you're good. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to another Marriage Mondays. Welcome to another Marriage Mondays where we spend Mondays talking about marriage. My name's Amir.
My name is Kamara.
And today we're going to talk about
coming from a broken home and not allowing that to get in your marriage.
So, what does it mean when we say we're coming from a broken home?
In this video, when we're talking about broken homes, we're not only talking about divorced parents and living in a single parent home. We're talking about toxic relationships, like witnessing your parents go through a toxic relationships with each other, or toxic relationships with other people, or having a toxic relationship with your parents in general. Toxicity, damage.
Physical, emotional, psychological toxicity, which occurs in marriage and sometimes occurs in the classroom.
What? What? What are we talking about?
Termination of life.
I'm so confused.
I'm just going to cut it out. The reason why we're talking about this topic today is because Kamara and I have both experienced what some would call a toxic relationship growing up. I was raised by my mother and she was raised by her father. So both of us have this experience of being raised in a single parent household.
As well as seeing our parents basically in and out of marriages and not really having that healthy example of what a marriage should be. We're splitting the video into two parts, basically not two separate videos, but two sections, which is the fears that are usually associated with individuals who come from broken homes, as well as our advice on how not to allow those issues to enter your relationship and your marriage. Dive right in.
The first fear that people have, obviously, is the fear of getting into a relationship.
It's scary.
The fear of mirroring what you were shown, what your parents did, right? And that's kind of the most difficult thing you face.
For me and my personal experiences, you have this example that your parents set, and they basically set the standard of marriage. So it's well, I don't want to get married if that's what a marriage is about. So it creates this almost this disgust with marriage.
Right. You know when you're in a toxic relationship, right? Or when you've seen a toxic relationship, you should know. And but yet and still you have this fear that you're gonna work and you're gonna emulate something that's toxic and something that's not good. But it shouldn't be like that, you know?
Yeah, it shouldn't. This is kind of a side note, but as Muslims, marriage is so pressed onto us. And then it's when we have all these bad examples of what a marriage is, and then on the side you have all these great examples of boyfriend girlfriend relationships, and it's well, why are you surprised that your child is in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship when your marriage is crap, basically. The second thing is fear of maintaining a healthy relationship. So fear of you get over the fear of being in a relationship. Now it's time to be in a healthy one. But what is healthy?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
How am I going to communicate? For instance, if you were exposed to a relationship where your parents were constantly
throwing plates at each other,
arguing, yelling, cursing one another out, possibly getting physical with one another, right? It's you're afraid that your spouse might be that person, right? Your spouse might be your mother, your spouse might be your father, right?
Oh, and that's scary.
Yeah. So having that fear that, oh man, this guy might be just like my dad. My dad was so overbearing and so harsh towards my family and my mother. It's I don't want to be exposed to something like that.
Yeah, and vice versa. So it's you don't know how to be in a relationship that isn't about arguing or isn't about fighting, and you don't know how to be in a relationship where two people could talk without screaming and raising their voice and making each other cry.
Yeah. As a kid growing up, you remember some of the great times, but the things that really stick with you, unfortunately, are the times when your parents are arguing or something bad has happened. So then when you've been exposed to all these things, it's memories compounded on top of each other.
That's a
right?
beautiful sentence.
It's difficult to let go. So it's a fear that we have. Like we're not going to be able to have a good relationship with our spouse while we're in that situation, just because we won't be able to communicate, won't be able to
don't know how
express ourselves. The next thing that we had is the fear of divorce
or being left, abandoned.
Right. In the Muslim community, there's a stigma placed upon those who get divorced, especially women and those who are left with children, right? It's harder for an individual who has a child to get married. It's harder. It's harder. And so individuals that are in that position end up settling for some person because they don't feel like they're worthy of having a good spouse, and that they're not going to be able to find a good spouse. But there are people who are in those situations. They will be able to find individuals who are good for them and their family, and it's just it might just take a little bit of a longer time to find that person. But you should, coming from experience, you should definitely try and wait for that opportunity, because if you continuously settle for someone, then you'll end up in a situation where you're worse off, or you're in divorce again, right? Which is not what you want to do.
Yeah, and never look at divorce as like a defeat, especially like if it's something that like you're in a toxic marriage, you're in a toxic environment, and you're in an abusive situation or you're neglected. Sometimes divorce is your only option. So don't look at it as you were defeated or it's a failure, because you tried everything that you can.
People who have seen a lot of it, you'll end up falling into two separate categories, right? Or maybe you're in the middle, which is, obviously the best option. You'll either be a person who's easily or willing to give up on a relationship, meaning that, if something goes wrong, I'm gone.
Oh, any type of mistake, you're like looking for mistakes.
Right. So like when I get into a relationship with Kamara, right?
When we got married,
obviously. when I married Kamara, kind of like the first year, to be honest, I wasn't looking, like I wanted to stay in the relationship, but in my mind I'm like, man, it's not a big deal. Like I had planned like, oh yeah, maybe we're probably going to get divorced, right? I didn't think in my mind that I'd be able to keep a relationship, especially not my first one, so I just, in my mind, in my self-conscious, I'm like, yeah, there's no way that we're going to be able to make this work, right? It'll just be, I'll shoot my shot maybe once or twice, and then, maybe I'll end up with someone,
Oh, so you were like expecting your third marriage to be like
first or second. I didn't expect my first marriage to be
like this.
Yeah, to go as well as it's going now.
Aww.
And then, or you'll fall into the category where you're not leaving the relationship. Like,
oh yeah, no matter how hard it gets, you're not leaving. Like your spouse could do
anything. And you're gonna stay with that person. And that's also that's not healthy,
that's
right?
Toxic. Like kind of like what Amir was saying earlier about your self-worth. What's the word, babe? Self-worth. Another thing that goes along with coming from a broken home is that a lot of us tend to have lower self-esteem, which means that we devalue ourselves, and we kind of settle, and we don't feel like we deserve the person who would be the best option. It's like emotionally, physically, Islamically, and we feel like we need to settle because of our family structure. So now we're going to talk about
different ways that you can
not let this affect you.
I'm constantly working on it, but I'm pushing through.
Yeah, me too.
And we're gonna share some of the things that may help you too.
The first point.
Tamara has the first tip.
Thanks.
What do you got, babe?
My tip is you have to recognize your own toxic traits, as well as being able to recognize the traits that were passed on to you from your parents. So growing up in a toxic environment, some of that is going to be passed on to you. You're going to be affected by what's happening, and you would have absorbed some of that stuff. So you have to understand what you absorbed and what you just didn't take away at all. You could do what, babe? By recognizing.
By recognizing what?
You could do what? What's the next point? I'm switching you over.
You should recognize that you are not your parents and that you have the ability to control yourself. As free thinking, grown adults, we have the ability to go into a situation and leave a situation. We have the ability to communicate in the way that we want to communicate with another individual. Like, there's nothing that says that you have to be the same person that your parents were. And because of that, you can create the type of relationship that you want to create and foster a good relationship for your children and with your spouse.
Exactly. It's 2019. Stop using your childhood as an excuse. Like, if you need help, go see a therapist. Like, yeah. We're not playing this, oh, because I was a child. No, you're a grown adult.
Yeah.
You're a grown adult.
You have to accept who you are, and you have to get through it. Like, you have no other option.
Stop dragging all that stuff with you.
Yeah. Grow up.
Your family structure does not define who you are. So kind of like what we were just talking about just now. Don't feel like because you come from a toxic household that you have to follow the stereotypes that go along with that. Like,
right. Like we said, you have the opportunity to create whatever you want to create of your spouse and treat them with respect and dignity.
And one of the ways to do that is by communicating in a healthy way. Like, yeah. You don't need to throw plates at each other.
Communication is key.
It really just is.
I mean, communication is literally your entire relationship. There's no other way, whether it's, physical, as in like, giving your spouse a hug, communicating when you come in the house, like your facial expressions, everything that we do with other people is communication. Our relationships are all bounded by the communication. So if we establish the good communication, then we can have a good relationship. Find an emotional outlet, right? You have to, when you're in a relationship, there will be times where you're stressed, you're angry, things are going on, you feel like you're losing control. You need to have a way of cutting loose, essentially, like taking 30 minutes or 20 minutes a day to go out for a run, to pursue a hobby that you love and enjoy. That'll be the best thing for you.
And lastly, it is making wise decisions. This needs to be done before you even get married. And when we say make wise decisions, don't settle on a person just because of your situation.
Right.
Don't look at marriage as a way as an escape. No one's here to save you from your parents or from your financial situation. That's something that you need to, fix.
Yeah. Very few people are getting saved by someone else. That's a fact. You have to figure out how you're going to save yourself,
Because at the end of the day,
you can put yourself in a better situation by, getting a certain spouse, but that person isn't going to save you from your own insecurities.
Ooh. I like that.